Now this new guy right here is really hitting on all cylinders so far from what I can tell. Hello and welcome back to the channel where today we're going to tackle 3 generations of Stihl 60cc chainsaws. The new 400, Stihl was calling this the 400.1, which I gotta say is dumber than calling it the 400. First up, we got the Stihl MS362. This is an older one. This is what sparked it all. And, well, did it spark it all? This was the new generation of chainsaws. And it's lasted for 15 years or more. All right, so this right here is a 2010 model, and it actually has heated handles. So it's going to be a little bit heavy in the weight department. But they were always kind of heavy. We got this around the 2010 time frame, and it was taking the place of the 361, which was pretty well loved, and honestly, people didn't care for it a whole lot. You know, they saw it as being a little bit big for no more power, blah blah blah. Same old story, different saw, but it went 036 360. That was the same saw, just a couple little updates. And then the new saw was the 361. Then the new saw was the 362, right? And then Stihl, off of this platform, decided to make the 400, right? These two saws are close to identical. There are some differences, yes, but you can bolt parts on and off of each, and they share a lot of parts, like the muffler, the dogs, everything. You know, it's like exactly the same. The handlebars will fit. The gas tank's the same. The carburetor, intake, all kinds of stuff is nearly identical and will bolt back and forth. So it's kind of like the same thing. What was going on? Then next up, we have the new 400, right? I know that we've seen stuff on the internet. We all have. Stihl was calling this the 400.1, which I gotta say is dumber than calling it the 400. Neither makes any sense whatsoever. But Stihl, with their naming conventions, is weird. We had the original, we had the 036, then the 360, then the 361, then the 362, and all of a sudden the 400 right here, the 400. Okay, that's a little bit weird, but it doesn't exactly fall in line with this. But then we go with this, which is 63 cc's. It would totally make sense. It is the next generation of this, right? They should be calling it the 363. It's even 63 cc's, for God's sakes. Make up your mind, Stihl. Anyways, so yeah, I know that you guys want to say, oh, the new one's called the 400.1. Well, clearly they have changed things up. It is now the 400. And on here, the data, it says 400.1. So anyways, it's all a fledgling thing. Let's take a moment here to talk about each individual saw. First up here, this is the 362. The 362 has a 47 millimeter bore and a 34 millimeter stroke, which means it is 59.98 cc's. Pretty much a perfect 60 cc saw. And weight, I measured all these with fuel and oil, and we're looking at 15.07 pounds, which is a heavy mother. Now, it actually does take on a little bit of extra weight because of the heated handles, you know, so that is a strike against it that it can't really help. But that's that. The other big thing that I want to look at before we throw this thing off to the side, give you some visuals here. Can you see how the fins on this cylinder are slanted horizontally? Well, that really means nothing aside from cooling effect, but we can see that there's going to be a vast difference whenever we open up the 400. These horizontal fins right here are kind of giving us a hint of what is up with this cylinder. This design, when the piston goes up, it pulls in fuel and air and fuel into the bottom of the engine, into the crankcase. Then that piston goes down and it squishes and forces that fuel to go up and into the transfers. And, well, there you go. That's enough of that. The 400. This thing is nearly 67 cc's. It's got the same bore and stroke of the old Husqvarna 266, 268. We're looking at a bore of 50 millimeter and a stroke of 34 millimeter. So all they did was go up on the bore 3 millimeters, and that gave you the displacement of this here saw, which will give you a little bit more power, but it gives tremendously more power. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the main thing that's going on, the main difference is, see those slanted fins on the cylinder? Now, again, that doesn't really tell you much of anything. The reason they're like that is for specific airflow for better cooling properties, but it gives us a hint of what's going on with this cylinder because we've had them apart. We know this has front-fed transfers. The old 362, whenever that piston went up, it drew in the air from the fuel and air from the carb, and then the piston came down and it squeezed it and pushed it directly up. Well, with front-fed transfers, that piston goes up and the fuel and air mixture goes right across and in. It's already going up. It's starting the movement up into the transfers, and then the piston comes back down and it rolls around back like that into your upper cylinder so that it can be compressed and ignited, and bang, we make power. Now this, we got to give credit where credit is due to the extraordinary work that Husqvarna has been doing. And they are the ones that came up with the front-fed transfers and started putting it into saws. And ever since they did that, quite honestly, Stihl is just playing catch up. And now they've been doing really good at playing catch up. All right, they are trying to keep up with the power that Husqvarna is generating, and they are doing a good job. Every time that Stihl comes out with one of these new saws and it has front-fed transfers, they're really hitting it. You know, they're really doing well. So this right here is producing more power than the 362. But why? It's because of those front-fed transfers. Yeah, it's a little bit more displacement. Yeah, it has a magnesium piston in there. But both of those things aren't really explaining how these things are so good when built up and ported, because they are fantastic saws. So good, as a matter of fact, that I think a ported 67cc Stihl MS400 is the best chainsaw ever made. But hold up, wait a minute. In comes the new guy. Now, this new guy right here is really hitting on all cylinders so far from what I can tell. I've seen all the videos from Machinery Nation, those guys over in Britain. I love the Brits. Who doesn't love the Brits? They're jolly old chaps, and every single one that I've met is a good-hearted person, and I like them. So, but anyways, I've seen all of their videos, and yes, it seems as though the new, smaller displacement 400 is actually outperforming the larger displacement 400. And so that's probably, I'm guessing, going to be just the tip of the iceberg. I bet you it's going to perform better in multiple ways, such as weight, right? The old 400 was loaded up, fully loaded, ready to go, 14.25 pounds. which is better than the is much better than the 362, which was coming in at 15.07 pounds. Hell, that's 3/4 of a pound plus lighter. But the new 400, we're looking at 13.7 pounds fully loaded. Holy shit, man. That is a really nice, that's hearkening back to the old days of the 361, you know, and the 360. That's really lightweight, guys. I don't know if you understand that, but a 60 plus cc saw coming in at under 14 pounds, fully loaded with fuel and oil. I mean, all the way filled up to the brim. That's impressive. And that's impressive. And according to Machinery Nation, their videos, it's also packing a better punch than the old 400. And well, this thing is giving up about 5 cc's of displacement, close to it, right? So this, what they do is they've given it a mind-boggling 62.6 cubic centimeters. The reason that's mind-boggling is because you can't get 62.6 cc's in any conventional matchup, all right? So basically what I had to do was just go back and forth with an engine displacement calculator, guessing at what the bore and stroke might be. First option, we're looking at having a bore of 48.4 millimeter and a stroke of 34 millimeter. The other two saws, the 362 and the original 400, both had a 34 millimeter stroke. And so I'm assuming with that formula that they would keep the 34 millimeter stroke and just increase the displacement to a very awkward 48.4 millimeter stroke. So I'm like, that's odd. But that right there will give you pretty much right at 62.6 cc's, which is what this thing is. The other option, and what I think that they probably did, is they went with a standard 48 millimeter bore and a 34.6 millimeter stroke. That's what I'm thinking they did. Now, we won't know until we break this down further, right? And we're not going to do that in this video. But right now, I'm guessing that it has 34.6 millimeter stroke and a 48 millimeter bore. The reason I'm making that guess is because this saw very clearly is producing more power than its 67 cc counterpart, which is, well, that's good. That's good. But also we have to give a little bit of credit where it's due. Husqvarna has figured this out, and you know, this seems to be a great saw. You know, I'm not saying it ain't, but Husqvarna has a well-established track record of keeping a smaller bore and giving it a longer stroke, and it has worked out. I mean, and it's given crazy good power numbers. And so it looks like Stihl just saw what Husky was doing, as Stihl tends to do, right? Like it, love it, hate it, don't care. The reality is the reality. And for decades, Husqvarna has been the innovative company, right? And then Stihl sees what they do and goes, oh, I'm going to give that a shot. And they try, you know, nearly everything, you know. They were the first to switch over to spring anti-vibration. You know, they're the first ones to have the whole X-torque ideology. You know, they're the first ones to switch over to the front fed transfers. Everything, you know, it's Husky first, then Stihl comes around and looks at it and goes, I think we can do that too, and maybe do it a little bit better. And it's working out great, you know, good job, right? But anywho, what we probably are going to see is a longer stroke and a smaller piston. One thing's for sure, I think it's pretty sure, Machinery Nation says that this thing does not have the magnesium piston like the old 400 did. It had a magnesium piston, which I think was just useless, honestly. But here we go. Let's take it apart, see what we can see. I have already ran this guy a good bit. I took it down to Smitty's, and we've got probably about a tank through it at this point. Ta-da! Yep, we see those diagonal fins going like that, and it appears as though this is also going to have the front-fed transfers. I mean, what am I thinking? Who am I kidding? It's going to have the front-fed transfers. It's totally going to have the front-fed transfers. It also has very much I'm not going to call it a Husky-esque muffler, but I will say that it's more Husky-like than it is Stihl. Stihl typically has that going on for their muffler. And you look at this, the muffler is slanted back at an angle. Now, typical of Stihl, it looks like you're going to be able to unbolt this front portion and modify it quite easily. Again, we'll save that for another video. But the idea that it is slanted like that tells me that this whole thing it is. There you go. I see it. It's leaning back. It looks like the cylinder is leaning back. I can't tell. No. I think it's no. I mean, the transfers and the flow and all that stuff is leaning in the right direction. And that's, again, a Husqvarna trait of leaning that cylinder back. It allows you to keep the height of the chainsaw lower. But no, it looks like that piston is pretty much still going just up and down, up and down. So, but anyways, enough talky talk. Let's see what these things will do in the wood, compare it, and come back and see what we think. The very old school 362, ported by Kurt Gerhardt. So let's see how this baby does. Get your saws ported. They're a lot better. Okay, so we're back, and I mean, the clear winner is the 362, but that's been ported, right? I just wanted to throw that in there. I don't have a stock 362, but we all know, I mean, we all know the stock 362 would get walloped pretty good by the old 400. And the old 400 got walloped pretty damn good by the new 400. That was some pretty serious difference between those two saws. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to be a lot closer than it was. Boy, that just falls right in place. I like that. I mean, totally. I really like how I didn't have to struggle back and forth with that. So, like I said, I have ran this a pretty good bit down at Smitty's little get-together. We let it pass around the hands of some other people. Smitty's going to have a video coming out of it with the Husqvarna up against the Husqvarna 562 Mark II, completely bone stocker. Now, whenever you watch that video, understand that this thing was brand new right out of the box, and ultimately Jeremy Bellhopper tuned this thing in and it started running a lot better. But initial thoughts, yeah, we've yet to see if this thing will port up as good as the old 400 does. The old 400, my gosh, whenever you put a good port job on it, it just hauls the mail. It is really, really, really unusually good. And hopefully this thing will be as well. But in stock for stock, oh yeah, it's more powerful and it's lighter. And the top comes on and off much easier. So it's stock for stock. The new 400 is clearly better than the old 400, which was miles better than the old 362. So whoever wins what, it doesn't matter. Stihl is going in the right direction. This is a nice, lightweight chassis that was really close to 50cc salt weight, you know. I mean, me and Jeremy were holding them side by side and picking them up and stuff with the Stihl MS261. Tell us what your thoughts on this and the weight and all that stuff.
Well, so far from what we've seen, the 400 weighs just about the same, or just a little bit more than the 261.
Yeah.
You probably need to run a tune on it because it sounded like it was a little goofy.
Man, it's close. I just hope that we don't run into anything like weak dog mounts because it's a really thin case, stuff like that. I hope we don't have to run into any of that. But like this recoil here, that's metal. That's magnesium. Over here, that's magnesium. That is not. I don't think that's plastic, and I don't want to scratch it. I think that's metal. So how they got it so lightweight, I'm not exactly sure, but hey, back in the day they did. The Homelight XL12, why do you think it was called an XL12? Something about 12 pounds. So the old stuff was lightweight. This is falling right in line with to be like an excellent saw. It's got considerably more power. Seems like. It really seems like it's got considerably more power than a stock MS400, the old one, right? And it's significantly lighter weight. Yes, you can tell a difference. Absolutely. So far, really liking this saw. And I really look forward to seeing what it'll do when ported. But that's it for this video. In the coming days, here quickly, you're going to see pretty rapid succession. This thing, what it can do against some of the other saws. And then I'm sending it out to Jeff Seacombe, and he's going to port it up for me just because. I want to do it myself, but I'm like, I don't know. Jeff is really good. But anyways, yeah, it's probably going to go to California. Let him port it. That way he gets a head start on the competition. You know, he will already have this platform figured out whenever it actually comes to the United States. Because at this point, this is not available in the United States. Oh, and before you ask me how I got it, I don't know that the guy wants to do this for people, but I got a guy from England who got it from, I think, Finland, and sent it to Misa. Yeah, it's so weird how it says 400, and then right here it says 400.1. Whenever, honestly, Stihl, listen to me. Just call it the 363 when you bring it to the United States. Just call it 363. It's 63 cc's. Oh my God, that makes sense, you know? Anyways, that's enough.